Hi, folks. Welcome. This is another edition of Why It Matters. My name's Tracy Kronzak. I'm Director of Innovation here at Now It Matters.
I'm Tim Lockey. Thanks for joining us. I'm CEO here at Now It Matters.
The way that I want to tee up our conversation today is slightly different than we've done in the past. Our guest Darrell is someone we've already heard from once, and he's got the distinguishing fact of being the first person we've had twice on Now It Matters. And why that is because we talked a lot about the Microsoft nonprofit tech acceleration at, the last time we recorded. After we turned off the recording, Darrell made one comment and said, by the way, you ever want to have me back to talk about being Black in tech? I'm game for it. And we remembered that. So here we are with Darrell again. And it's an important moment for both everything that's going on in our world, including the anniversary of the George Floyd protests. But it's also an important moment to understand that there's a lot of context around what it means to be any form of underrepresented in IT. And my only hope for today is that for folks listening, what you get out of this is deeper context than you generally have an exposure to at any level of operating in the world of IT. And that's it. I don't know, Tim, if you have anything to add, but I want to throw it over to you, Darrell, to sort of kick us off, maybe update us on what's going on and tell us, I guess, start with telling us like that comment. What was going through your head in that comment?
Wow.
And we'll start there.
Well, thank you both for having me. Once again, my name is Darrell Booker, aka your techie's favorite techie. Aka I was told I'm a computer person with a mission, and some other titles that I love to use. But I don't know. I think what came out of that conversation is, and this is something that I've been saying for a while. And, when I look out into, say, the tech community, I don't have any role models in the tech community that look like me. Let's say that. I'm not saying that there are not any. Listen to what I'm saying. What I'm saying is, we're not put in positions to be able to be heard and to be able to give our opinions like I feel, say, white counterparts do. And it's always been that way for me from, the age of whatever, 12, 13, when I first got into it. There was no Black person in tech that I looked up to. There was a huge period of time where I hid my geekness, because it was not cool. It was not something to do. None of my other friends were doing. And, they couldn't relate to what I was doing because they too did not see that kind of role model. So I think what prompted me to say that is, being thankful for you all in this platform to be able to have whatever conversation we had last time, but then also being able to have a platform to talk about some things that, like you said, some people may be unaware of because they're not experiencing, and also for all the other possible Darrells out there to let you know, hey, you're not alone. How can we start to build some collective voice? If I can be, we used this word last night. Someone said, be a vessel. If I can be that vessel for understanding and things of that sort, I want to use this moment in time. Sometimes you have a small window and you got to kind of capitalize on it now. And it's sad to say that, as a Black man, period, in America, including tech, there's this notion of you got to hurry up and do something before that news cycle changes.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So when we think of the heels of the anniversary of killing George Floyd, the attention, this, that, I've never seen so many people with D&I titles in my life, like just out of the woodwork, like all this attention, all these programs, all these things, et cetera. every Black person, older than the age of 14 or 15 is in not even that far in the back of their mind, but in the middle of their mind saying, this is going to last that long. The attention and all this is not going to last this long. So I say all that to say, when I made that comment, it was like our little window is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. And if I have the opportunity to, say something that someone hears that, triggers something, I just love the opportunity. So that's kind of, I guess, how we got back here today.
There is like 50 things that I want to dig in on that. I think, okay, so the two things that came top of mind as you were talking or one, there's a little frustration there, right? And I think that is, you're in a space where you're like, it's relieving enough to be able to express the very real frustration that happens.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I want to dig into is the fact that the other thing that I have observed that I want to see your, take on is that not only do we not have this sort of set of role models that you're talking about, but by the time somebody gets to the point where they could be a role model, two things seem to happen by my observation. One is they're exhausted, like literally exhausted because they're doing two jobs. And two, there's this crushing weight of the normative cultures and the normative performance metrics that operate around them that not only contribute to that exhaustion, but they also have to actually mimic in order to get where they need to be a role model for the next generation.
I want to chime in. Absolutely facts. The exhausting part. I know for me, you get like, those times I just kind of get defeated and be like, what am I doing this for? What is this? It's nothing's going to change. You do get exhausted. And, I live for those moments when, something happens that gives me that new energy on my back. And it's like, I can go. Off camera, I told y'all I was feeling great today. I feel like I'm on cloud 8.5. And this ties in so much what you said. I had a very impromptu conversation. This was so very impromptu conversation with someone relatively famous today. I have to tell you another time who that person is, how it happened. And after the conversation, seeing something, whatever, they sent me a text message and they said, "You're a real one too."
Mm.
And what they said by that is directly what your last comment was. Darrell, you're not out here doing these things and then conforming, you're having to do all the things and you're conforming to some model of a person just in order to get things done. You're saying to yourself, know what? I'm going to be 100% me and be authentic as I can and genuine to be me. So back to your point, Tracy, yes, those that may end up getting, elevated to possibly be that visible role model, they're no longer real ones. You follow what I'm getting at?
Yes.
They morphed into said other person. You know what I mean? So they, and I guess for, if we think of, the Black community, I often say Black and brown. I often lump us together for a lot of reasons. A lot of places around this country where I grew, between Black, Latinx, we were all together. I'll tell you this real quick. I was talking to a guy and I asked him his ethnicity. He said, "I'm Dominican." But before he can even barely get that out, he said, "But Darrell, I'm Black as you." And I was like, you know what? I know that because that's how I grew up. So I kind of come with that mindset, but I say all that to say, within that community, we can spot those fake ones. So even if
yes.
It's almost like there's probably somebody listening to say, well, no, such and such is our role model in tech and such and such. And I could probably come back and tell you, nah, he's fake, she's fake. They're not what, our community is really looking for, or really, need in some people that we can be able to say, you know what, they are showing me that there's a path. So we just, I don't know, we just need more platforms to be able to have the real ones be able to, really let the world know, as a Black community, what our struggles are, what we need, and how we can work together. Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. I feel myself going down a hole on some tangent or some other things, so I'm gonna hold back a little bit. So,
well, if I could take a stab at it, like there's two things happening at the same time, right? Once that person gets to that point, suddenly whatever entities out there is like, look, we have a Black executive. Look, we're putting our Black executive right on the front lines. And that actually, on a personal level, also puts that person in a really hard place, right?
Right.
Because you're like, great, and as a sidebar, like I see this now happening in California with Caitlyn Jenner, right? Because people are like, oh, Tracy, look, like there's like, Caitlyn Jenner. And I'm like, okay, look, you don't know what that looks like on the inside of the LGBT community. You don't know what that actually means.
Yes.
Right. And I think what you're picking at, the second thing that I want to dig in on is what you're picking at is Black is not a monolith. African American is not a monolith. Brown is not a monolith. But, right before we pressed record, we were talking about the idea that, white folks look at these communities and they're like, you're monolithic. Clearly, you all must want the same thing. And by the way, we can only conceive of what you want within the framework of what feels safe and comfortable for us, for you to want as a Black, brown, African American person, right?
Yes.
But if you study the formation of social movements, you see very clearly there's intra-community politics that never gets surfaced, that adds an additional layer to how you're perceiving your work in your own job.
So much facts. I mean, oftentimes people will say, hey, I get it. I want to help, and in their mind, they're completely convinced. But once whatever that help is ultimately affects them, then it's no longer, hey, whoa, we don't want to go that far. No, we're not going to do that. And what you said is so true, because on the outside looking in, and let's, get really clear, white America, Black America, outside looking in, if it's white America saying, okay, we want to help, like you said, there's this picture or this idea conceived of how we can help. You follow I'm getting that?
Yep.
And it's convinced to the level of, I know this is how we help. This is it. This is how to do it. Once they start to get here and then find out, to your point, because there are intra-community differences, and said plan that you have isn't going to work exactly that way, you need to do some pivoting. There's the fallback at that point.
Yep.
That is when the fallback happens. And, it's really stemming from not enough of, wanting to, and this is extending across all races, genders, sexuality, everything, is not enough of just truly wanting to understand. Before you even come with what your fix is, understand, roll up to the community, be there, whatever you got to do. If you feel like you're not safe and you need to figure out some way to be safe, and understanding, whatever you got to do to be able to understand what is truly needed, do that, and then come back with a proposed solution.
Yeah. I mean, white people wanting to help is like Avatar, right? Like that's the plot in the movie Avatar. Sorry, Tim. Go ahead.
No, that's fine. And I want to say, as a person that is going to never escape my whiteness, I just don't see that ever happening. And I also don't feel like I need to. Actually, what I want to do is exactly what you're talking about, is to learn how to understand.
Right.
What I find is that and Tracy has been a tutor to me for years in this, is helping me in that understanding process, not have to hold power as I'm doing the understanding, which means you just have to constantly be telling yourself as a white person, like you know, you have to pay attention to intent versus outcomes and completely keep talking to yourself about, hey, what you're looking for is an outcome that you care about.
Right.
And
right.
the motivations to get there and the outcomes have to just sometimes just not be aligned for
Right.
part of that. And you just have to kind of live in that tension that I find still really difficult. You know, and I just think that that's important for, as you're talking about learning how to understand and how to listen. I just think it's really important to do that well.
And I'm gonna say something. So when you think about learning to understand, the easiest way that I can think of it is, and I don't know, this is extremely acceptable on the larger scale. And I say that to say, I don't know, pick any foreign country really far, and you wanted to do something or travel there or whatever. It's this whole thing of let's go embrace the culture. Let's go to authentic places. Let's talk to people. Let's really get to that real understanding level around any and everything. And with super acceptance of the way they may dress or talk or eat, or we're so accepting of that. But when we look at this country, we don't even do that on that level. And it really, really, really just grinds everything in me when I'm gonna get real here too, is I feel like, and I think this really goes back to some deep shit years ago, when in the hundreds of years ago, or however long ago, when blacks were just seen as entertainment, dance for us, sing for us. You know what I mean? And I'm gonna say something, and I don't care who disagrees with me, but I don't think a lot's changed with that. And I'm gonna tell you why. It grinds my soul every time when I'm bored, about to go to sleep. I pull up TikTok and I can see middle-aged white women dancing to the latest Meg Thee Stallion, this whatever, rapping certain lyrics from certain rappers, etc. It's cool to embrace the culture to that extent because it's entertaining for you and you're using it to entertain others. But can I can't even think of anybody's name right now, but will you hire one of them if they rolled up at your job and you was in a hiring position? You know what I mean? Will you do that? Are you acceptable if they come knock on your door and say, I want to take your daughter out for a date? Are you going to be cool if they became your next door neighbors? All these things, and it really still just really, upsets me that, as Black people, we're not respected and valued for everything that we have, and not really seeing that, who we are and our culture is okay, and that, yeah, I don't even know what I said.
You're digging into something that I think is super important to call out. And that is, it's this minstrel show trope, right? And if you look at something like the history of jazz, if you look at something like the history of blues, jazz and blues arose because it was the only way of expressing that frustration, that anger, and then that sadness. And then it immediately got co-opted. Same thing, by the way, with hip hop. If you dig into the early, look at what happened in New York City with like the Cross Bronx Expressway, with like how that decimated the world in New York. The same thing happened, by the way. So what I hear you saying is sometimes and not even sometimes, frequently, I only feel as valued in this world as I am able to perform for you, digging into this trope that's existed for 100 or more years. And by the way, this trope was created out of like the darkest period of American history because it was the only place where there was safety in the Reconstruction.
Yep.
That's what I'm hearing you saying. And that is, so while you can be you, what it takes for you to be you is an enormous amount of blocking, maneuvering, and being like, no way, no how am I going to accept this bullshit? And there's a price you pay. And if that price is not your career, it's your mental health and sanity. That's what I'm hearing you say.
Facts. Yep. There's a huge price you pay. You're exactly right. I couldn't have said it better.
Tracy, when you say blocks and maneuvering, help those of us who don't have to block maneuver. Spell out what that looks like. Because I think I know, but for people who may not, and that may include me, what does that mean? And I said Tracy, but
yeah, I think Darrell, you should answer this. I can chime in, but you should answer.
No, I want you to go, and then I'm gonna go second. Go ahead.
All right. I cannot speak from the Black experience in America. I can very much speak from the genderqueer experience in America. Right now, I made it. I mean, honestly, to be candid, I made it a fucking point 10 years ago to be like, I'm not going to show up and be your traditional woman in tech. I wear men's clothing to meetings. I make it a point to wear a fucking tie. I feel better being me. And when I feel better being me, when I am able to express me in all that engenders, right? Clothing to pronouns to, whatever, right? I perform better and I know I can do better. Now, the problem is that showing up like that engenders a discussion first about who I am and why I'm there that way before I can even perform.
Facts.
And in the context of a lot of IT culture, that discussion never progresses to the performance because people are like, got it, you're the diversity person, let's talk about other stuff now. That's what blocking and maneuvering looks like to me, because I actually had that moment of darkness at one point with the kids, unfortunately. And I was like, I got my hair cut recently, right? I have this nice like A-line bob thing going on, whatever. And I said, if it weren't for the fact that I was trying to maintain my IT career through 55 or 60, I would fucking do an Annie Lennox 1984 haircut and never again wear women's clothing. But like, that's not going to get me where I need to be in my career, because then that makes the discussion about why am I doing that, not what I'm able to offer you. So blocking and maneuvering for me looks like finding a compromise that works for other people, even though I know the things that work for me better are, available to me.
Well put. And, very similar blocking and maneuvering. And I think the one thing you said that was so key is like, you want to show up in a way that you feel the best and that then you can be your best person. But when you feel like you got to go into a room and the odds are already stacked against you the second you walk in, you follow me getting that?
Yep.
For me, it started. I had like a double whammy and stuff because full time at age of 17, full time job in tech, working with the state. 17, so I'm Black and young.
You had a full time job at 17 working tech.
It's full-time job at 17.
You started coding, correct?
Yep.
That's what I thought.
Yep. At 17, full benefits and all of the people that were around me were, at least more than twice my age. You know what I mean? It's the state. If you ever worked at a state agency, it's literally hard to get fired. Like you could stay there until you literally kill over. So it's so many people that are there. So it's like I'm young. I'm Black, and, having to feel like I have to just, come in as this perfect figure or thing that, that they're looking for, because I already know there's some things that I can't change. And these are two things that are already against me the second I walk in the room. You know what I'm saying? And, you know, it got to a time, and I don't know if you said Tracy's 10 years, I think you said 10 years or something you mentioned, that it came a point for me that I realized it was two things. One, what the hell am I doing all this for, conforming? Because at the end of the day, it ain't really still even making that much difference.
God, yes. You get
I'd
those moments of darkness.
Yeah, it's like I'm doing all this and I still ain't getting to where I need to be. So I might as well just show up for myself. And then I think also for me, and this is what when I really like to talk to young people when I hear this is, once you get to that point of confidence around who you are, what you have up here, it really starts to, change your thinking of being your 100% and authentic self. You know what I mean? I used to have an argument with someone all the time, because especially not in tech, and it's like, tech is that one field. You start to, dress down. You know what I mean? And I got to the point, and no offense to anyone, I didn't want to wear the white man uniform anymore. The blue shirt with the khaki pants. I didn't want to wear that. That's not me. You know what I'm saying? So I started to wear like, all right, or whatever that was, or they can come with t-shirts. I can come with t-shirts, and you can come with sneakers. I can come with sneakers. They gonna look different, but they sneakers. You know what I mean? So once I started to kind of start to say to myself, you know what? If everybody else can show up to be them, I can show up and start being me. You know what I mean? And and you mentioned something about your mental. It plays some fucking mental games with you. You know what I mean? I feel like out of work, I'm a different person, but then I got to go to work and be someone else, as y'all look and see fully, I don't see this sleeves, whatever. So the evolution of me and, fuck the blocking and maneuvering is, all tattoos I had were under shirts. You couldn't see them. You know what I mean?
That's right.
You know, and then I never forget this very first one I got that's really small. That was in honor of one of my homies that died. It's my very first one. It just 6 letters, says LTDED, which stands for Live the Dream Every Day. And it's here because it's something I want to remember as I get up and go hard every day. But when I just had this little one, I was self-conscious. Like that first time I had to have a short sleeve one in this tattoo, because you want to know why? Young Black man, and now he got tattoos. Like, oh my God, like, you know what I mean? It fucks with you so much. But then it got to that point to where it's like, I'm not gonna let others, do this to me, make me feel a certain way. If you value me and my skills and what I have to bring, what I got on my arm, as long as it's not offensive, which it isn't, should mean a hill of beans to what we about to do on this computer, or what we about to build, or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So, and it still continues to this day. And, for all of us, including me, and, even though I feel like I have a lot of experience in saying, I'm going to be very much, authentic. And I try to do that every day, but it's still those little bit of times when, like, you know what I mean? I got to do a little bit of that blocking and maneuver just because. So
I had a colleague when I was working at a previous job. I'm not going to say who or where, but we had a ritual. And she was very highly placed, very highly placed at this organization. And I wasn't. I had just started, and but yet we experienced the same frustrations with the same people and the same circumstances, and we fell into a rhythm where we would go to one of these tiny little offices that's like maybe even half the size of the room that I'm in now, close the door, and just like scream and fucking shout and just like
Mhm.
let it all out.
Mhm.
Right. And just
Mhm.
be like, I can't fucking believe so and so did that. What the
Mhm.
like? And the problem is that when you're not experiencing those frustrations, you don't need those moments.
Mhm.
And what I hear you clearly pointing out is that, Black in tech is still a performance until people stop making assumptions about the Black experience.
Mm.
And that Black experience is just as wide and deep. You made some comments about like your friend who's from the Dominican Republic, right?
Mhm.
Who's
Mhm.
like, I am just as Black as you, right? That's a thing. That's the
Mhm.
Afro-Caribbean experience as related to Latinos and the historically Black community in America, right?
Mhm.
Like, I am benefit of the fact that I have Black Republican friends who are actually super involved in the party. And that is a whole nother layer
Mm.
of what it means to be Black in America and what they tell me about. And, I was riding on the chairlift with one of them this year who was just absolutely in tears because he's like, I have believed in this party and Trump is killing me,
Mm.
you know? And, what we assume to be is not how everybody is able to show up. So the question I have is, let's assume that there's CEOs or SVPs or anybody listening to this.
Mhm.
What do you tell a white CEO that actually needs to change that you can't say in that performance framework? What do they need to do different?
Oh, wow. I mean, it's a little bit of a laundry list.
Go
I
for
mean,
it.
I think in the organization, representation is kind of first. If you're not having enough of that diverse workforce, I don't even know if you can even do anything once you start to address that, because what CEOs a lot of times are under the false assumption is they can solely make a proclamation, and then they're expecting that it's getting all the way down to the little guy. And when you have all of this middle management, which is the same good old boy network that was there before you made said proclamation, it does nothing. It does nothing. And that is hands down the first thing that you need to address. And what does that look like? Is that really saying oh, well, we can't just hire a bunch of people? Okay, well, maybe you need to take a hard look at organizational structures. Is there someone that is Black that honestly can just be brought up a level? You know what I mean? And now they're in those peer conversations with said people that previously was giving them a lot of microaggressions and some oppression and all that. Now they're at this peer level. I mean, I think just even looking at where you are, what your leadership looks like is hands down the first thing. Oh man, and then it has to be a lot of genuine, and I don't even want to use the word dialogue, but just genuine understanding, and back to that, embracing the culture. The sooner said CEO can understand what the demographic of his workforce, what matters to them, putting them first over profits or anything else, that's going to be when you actually see that change inside. And it's going to take a hard look. It's going to take, looking at everything across the board. I just mentioned positions. You need to look at the salaries too. I'm going to get on this one because this is something that we as Black in tech struggle with, is just equal pay. And what I believe it stems from is, tech is very much that kind of field where, it's, how can I put it? You don't need a degree as long as you got the experience and you can get in and you can get a job and you can do these things. There's a lot of, unknown a lot of times into what people actually do. And I say that to say, say you're in this position, you have a manager, and whether that manager is a real techie or not, and then you have the team, and a lot of times that manager doesn't have a fucking clue as to what it really takes for those said tech people to do the job. They have no clue. You follow what I'm saying?
Yep.
So,
because they don't have the domain expertise to inform their decision making.
Right. So what ends up happening is you have really, really great Black talent that is doing amazing work. They're working harder because we always got to prove ourselves. We're raising our hand, doing more. We're working longer hours. We're doing all the things that said a white counterpart, but the pay looks drastically different. Drastically different. And that needs to be addressed ASAP because, until, we can feel like we are valued, and this even comes from me. I'm gonna say this, and I'll put out a disclaimer. I'm not talking about any particular current or former employer. This is an aggregation of my 20 plus years in tech since the age of 17. But, one of the most defeating things is getting up and going to work on a daily basis and you feel like you're not being valued and you feel like you're being taken advantage of. And imagine the combo of that, because good and well, you are doing unbelievable amount of work and it's not about being rich. Just value me and compensate me no different than you would anybody else. You know what I mean? And the fact that organizations don't take the necessary steps to correct it. It may be one of those situations someone came in said job and you didn't know, and maybe they're outperforming and they're doing more things. Well, you need to reevaluate, because guess what? If you had now what that job looks like and the great work that great Black man or woman is doing, if you had to replace them and you brought in a white person to do that, they're going to demand to be at a certain salary. And guess what? You're going to give it to them. No question. Because you're going to look at them and you're going to say, yeah, you do deserve that. But you got a person in the role doing it, but you don't want to give it to them. It makes absolutely no sense.
The peer level thing, for folks who may not be familiar with how large entities work, this isn't a small business thing where everybody's kind of like rolling up their sleeves and doing work. The peer level thing is incredibly important, I think, for folks to understand. And that is, there's a hierarchy and pecking order, and your title opens up doors to getting your work done. And what you're talking about is a phenomenon known as underleveling, where it's like, well, we got, Darrell or Tracy as a manager, like they should be fripping grateful that they're a manager.
Grateful,
but,
yes.
The problem here is we're doing the work of a senior director, and the kind of negotiation necessary between teams, departments, and resources that we get involved with necessitates that title for us to actually do our job, which we're already doing at a lower level and a lower pay because we're supposedly grateful to be here, but don't actually get the recognition for. And that demand of like, well, you a white person and you're going to come in and be like, well, of course you should be a senior director because that's what that work is. Right. There's an assumption there around that gratitude that I think is universal, frustrating, and it's holding back the entire IT industry, if you want my own opinion.
Your opinion is spot on. Grateful is it. Other words we hear is like the words we use is you better be lucky. That is the feeling we get. You're lucky that you have what you have. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You're very much. And you're spot on. And I think sometimes it's, it is portrayed in that way. I was telling someone who was part of something the other day is, like you said, Tracy, at that manager level, and you're doing all those fabulous things, you're expected to do all those fabulous things and do them perfectly.
Oh yeah, because God forbid you make a mistake or make a miscalculation, right?
Right. And it's baffling how they could lose sight of all the things that you're doing above and beyond, like you said, at the senior director and all of that, but will hold the smallest thing over your head to hold you back. Happens all day, all day, all day, all day, all day.
And sometimes that thing is not even visible to you until the assumption about your work has already been made.
It's already made.
Yeah.
And I would say something too. You know what pisses me off too in the smaller organizations, it, I start to understand a little bit more. But when you get to some organizations, the person that is holding you back, they act like it's actually their money. And I say that to say, you get to a certain size organization, and it's like, dude, you act like I'm asking you to pay me out of your checkbook. Like, why are you giving so much resistance so that I can have a decent life? You know what I mean? Like you do. You know what I mean? It blows my mind, and I think it's also very deflating when things happen and it's a slap in the face because we can clearly see, oh, but you did that though. Oh, but you spent money on that. Very easy to know what your peer is making. What up? Oh, but they and you don't necessarily want to compare to others, but when things get presented to you as absolutely not possible, but you see mountains being moved in other cases, and then you got to come home and say, well, what the fuck am I doing wrong?
Yeah.
What else? You know what I mean? And the constant, well, you need to do this, you need to do this, you need to do that. Okay, you do those things. Well, you need to do this, and you need to do this, and you need to do this. I don't get it. I don't understand it. A very controversial thing I'm probably about to say here, but we look at the Black community. A lot of times we'll say amongst ourselves as white people think sometimes they own the world. In every instance, like it's like, I'm entitled to this, you're not. Why are you here? Or what are you doing in this area? And to your point, if you are there, you better be grateful you're here because you're not even supposed to be here. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
All the time. I mean, simple stuff. I'm gonna be real with you. Simple stuff like, maybe walking down the street and acting like you own the entire sidewalk. Like, oh, okay, we can't mutually slide over for each other. You know what I mean? Or, whether you decide to hold the door or not hold the door for me, or if I hold the door for you, say thank you. We was raised to do that. So when I hold the door, I'm saying thank you. You know what I mean? It's just so many things. And I don't know if all this is lumped into microaggressions. I think it is. But all these little things that happen on such a daily basis that it's just it drives us to do so many things. I know for me, when I was younger and not that much, a little, younger than I am now. I'm not young as a kid, but suffer from depression. Smoking weed was my getaway. 5 o'clock, me and my boy Corey, we had to meet up. We had to. We were two black men in tech at different jobs, and it was like, yeah, man, what did you deal with it? Yeah, man, it's fucked up. Yeah, man, you know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean? That that's what you had to do, and fighting what is the alternative to be like, okay, now I know I can go another route. It's like, no, don't get into crime, don't sell drugs, don't do this, don't do all of these things. Come on to this side of the world and be a good person, but you only can be a good person up to here. You know what I mean? That's about it. It's an unbelievably weird spot to be in.
That really resonates with how I came up in this world. And this is a conversation, by the way, about Black in tech, but I only will add that, like, from my own experience in this world, I never in a million years anticipated living beyond 25.
Mm,
And when I turned 26, I was like, I don't know what to do.
mm,
I literally had no idea, because I was like, live hard, live like, do all the drugs, do all the things, make all the sort of like, not so legal choices, and flame out and die. And that was the conception I had of what my own future is.
yep.
And why I'm saying it that way is because it was a crisis for me when I turned 26, but we have this crisis right now for Black in America, and that is, what is your future? And what I'm hearing you very strongly say is that that future is still not certain.
Oh,
And
hell
that
no.
future needs to get written in a way that accounts for the past, not ignoring it.
Right. Exactly. No, you're exactly right. It's not certain. I think, you know, one of the things, and I've been having some conversations with people, is so many people that are wanting to do things and have, a better life. And maybe I attribute a lot of things to the social media, but so I'm going to attribute to this is, it really opens people's eyes up of the possibilities. Really prior to that, before you really didn't have insight of everybody's life and all the cool things out of it, you knew your little neighborhood or what you knew. That's what you knew. You know what I mean? So it's very much like, there wasn't so much to look up to, and if you wasn't the one that from day one was drilled, go to school, try to get to college and move the fuck away, you know what I mean? All you know is your little 4-block radius. Well, now that people can see so many things and what's out there, contrary to beliefs, the majority of Black America are not just fucking lazy and just want to, collect government shit and not do anything. That is an unbelievable misconception, We want to, and we're seeing the opportunities for programs, whether they're teaching you a trade, skilling, digital literacy, people are seeing those, and people are, starting to navigate a little bit and understanding, okay, what are some things that I can get to? So that's improving a little bit around awareness. We still need to dive deeper into the hood. But the one issue that has, still going to be that bottleneck of that ceiling is, if you do all those things, you start to clean yourself up, whatever that looks like, you start to get some transferable skills, whatever. Can you get the job? Maybe. If you get the job, will it be a decent one? If it's a decent one, will you be able to grow? Like, it's still, it's like a little bit of hope, but it still looks like you're only going to ever get but so far.
It still looks like you got lucky, to use
Yeah.
your own words.
Yep. You got lucky. You got lucky to be here. Yep. Where are your friends? They're on the corner, right? Like, you should be lucky, or they're here, or they're locked up, or they're, whatever. Oh, you should be lucky. You're good.
Well, the part of it that resonates with my own experience is, at some point that gets internalized. And I have said to myself, like, oh shit, I am lucky and I shouldn't want for more. And what that means to me is, don't have ambition, don't get bigger, because you're just damn doing great where you are. And that's all you should want for. So, like, that's it, man. Like, you got lucky, you landed on your feet. Some of your friends died along the way. Some of your friends are still out on the street turning tricks for money. And you are in a house with a wife. Don't want for more. Do not want for more. And I think what you're calling out here is the fact that it's okay for white folks to want for more.
Yeah.
And
it's so interesting listening to both of you talk about that, because you're like legends in the respective worlds that you work in. Like, you've gotten to places that most people can't even imagine. in their careers. And it's not, it is absolutely not luck at all. And so I'm
Well,
listening to this and I completely believe what you're saying, but it is so shocking to me to hear that that your perspective is that, because it it looks so clearly earned, just from the outside looking in. And so I don't know what to say about that, except that is, I'm shocked to hear that. And Tracy, we've known each other for years now,
yeah.
and like, yeah, it's, yeah, that's shocking.
Yeah, and I hear what you're saying, and I'm trying to figure out, is there some combination in terms of it's earned because we had to fight so hard to get there, to get to somewhere where sometimes it feels like you're not wanted, and then it's you're lucky you're still here. Is you know?
Yeah. I mean, I think I I actually, like, it makes sense when you're saying it. It makes sense that it feels like you're lucky. So I'm not saying
Yeah.
like I don't
Okay.
understand or it doesn't make sense. What I'm saying is that it would never occur to me to
Oh,
think of
okay.
that way, because Darrell, from our very first conversation, like, I know you have fought to be authentic, which is why you're where you're at. And Tracy, I'm like, you and I have had conversations, so I know how true that is for you as well. And so I think part of what I'm saying is that it's not luck, it's authenticity that's put you where you are. And it's
Mm,
still, you're like, what I'm hearing you say is that your internal voices still tell you sometimes, hey, it's luck, or it's somebody else's decision. And and actually what it is, to the outsider looking in, is a force of personality for both of you being authentic and not being somebody else, not letting yourselves be tokenized,
right.
not like Tracy. I remember the conversations with you years ago about how you're going to show up and how you're going to dress and what that meant when you were launching your own business. And, that had to be considered. And so, it's just, yeah, I'm glad to be an alongsider in this conversation, which I have almost no relation to. All of the, by the way, all of the, like, complete white culture, like, be yourself, has completely worked for me. Like, the more I'm myself, the better it goes. Like, it's just so unfair. And I just look at that and I'm like, geez, like, it just is just so unfair. And so, yeah, I have almost nothing to contribute to the conversation except to say, thank you for being authentic, and to, at least if I can be one voice saying, your authenticity is why you're where you're at. And who knows where it's going to take you, because being authentic doesn't always end well. And I think that's got to be scary too, right?
it's
Because the
it's
future isn't guaranteed on that.
Yeah, it's not guaranteed. It's very scary, and you wonder, when is that fine line of, okay, uh, you're too authentic, or or you're exposing too much, or whoa, you're making people uncomfortable. You're making people all right, because I'm telling you of how I've been oppressed and what I got to go through, and I'm making you uncomfortable.
Yeah.
What
Right. Exactly. Yeah.
That's actually just hit the freaking nail on the head, Darrell, right there. It's like you're always wondering, where have I crossed the line? And
Yeah.
occasionally when you have experiences, like I had with a former employer, that was like, this was clearly about us being profoundly disquieted with Tracy, not Tracy's work.
Mm,
You're like, great, I crossed the line. And you're like, well, what does that mean for everybody that looks like me after me? What does that mean for me?
right.
And, what does that mean for, like, that little box of, like, rage that I carry all the time? And I think, Tim, what I would say is, what you're not seeing is the list of things that you set aside to get where you are,
Yeah.
right? I have a list of shit that it's like, if I had the space for it, I'd be doing. But
Yeah.
the effort that it takes to get there takes up the space that you get for that set aside list of stuff. You know, however that looks to a person. That can look like a list of unpursued hobbies, that can look like family, that can look like a lot of things. You know, in my world, it looked like leaving the LGBT movement behind. Because I was like, the two things that I faced was I had people that I had known for years calling me like a sellout because I wanted to go corporate. And at the same time, I knew what that corporate journey looked like and what I had to set aside to get where I wanted to be. So like for me, one of the set asides is I have no real personal understanding of what even the hell the contemporary LGBT movement wants of itself, because it looks like a lot of people to me just clamoring for attention, but I know there's something there, right? And I know how to interface with it because I grew up organizing in it. But what I don't know are why the priorities are being expressed the way they are nowadays. So that's one of my set asides.
Yeah. I want to go back to something you said about crossing the line. And, you know, what is that line? Why is Tracy and I's line different? Like our line is here and somebody else's line further away. So you mean advocating for myself is crossing the line? You mean telling you how I'm uncomfortable is crossing the line? Telling you how I need help is crossing the line? Telling you how this isn't a safe place for me is crossing the line? Like, how is even all of that crossing the line? But it's that is the mental gymnastics that we play with in our head to say, am I about to cross this line that I'm going to say something just to speak up for myself or to bring awareness that's ultimately going to cause some issues? And, you know, and it's incredibly hard. And, you know, I admire so many times when I meet, you know, a Black female that is doing great things in tech or another place, especially tech, because they struggle with the angry Black woman stereotype. So anytime they say something or possibly say it in a tone or be passionate, I ain't even gonna say elevate the voice, just be passionate. Well, she's angry and she's making us uncomfortable and she's this, and this. But someone else's line is way further. They can go on a fucking tantrum at work and it's like, all right, calm down. It's okay. We'll take the rest of the day off and come back tomorrow and it'll be okay, you know?
I'm only nodding because I have literally seen that. I have literally seen that. And that kills me because it's like, God forbid I be angry and just say I'm angry, but like I'm watching someone having a full scale, like, what are we in high school tantrum and being told it's okay. That's the price of your innovation. Come in tomorrow. We'll handle it. Right? Like there are different starting lines and different expectations. Darrell, I want to dig into something you just brought up and I'm a little ashamed I didn't actually think of it earlier.
Okay.
Talk about safety a little bit. I think that what you just hit upon is a really important concept for folks to understand. And that is, what is the safety parameters of the experience of being Black in tech and how that safety should get created? But also, like, there was a few more thoughts you were saying around that.
Oh man, don't let me forget to talk about how things should be created. I don't know, but I'll come up with it on the fly. But when I think of the lack of safety and always going back to that lack of representation and things of that sort, you know, not feeling that as you should be able to, you know, express, like I said, you know, I have concerns, I have questions, you don't have that person that you can say it to, because either you can say, I'm just thinking or I'm assuming, but off of things that you've already witnessed, you know that they're going to have a blocker to what you said. You know what I mean? That, they're going to find ways to point it back at you. And God forbid you're saying something about one of their peers.
Mm.
You might as well not even start the conversation because it's going nowhere. And that's what I mean about not feeling like you can have that safe place for that person who's really supposed to be there for you and making sure you got to have that one advocate. And in most situations, it should be that, direct line manager, but it's oftentimes they're the one who's created that unsafe environment for you. So how do you fix that? Organization I worked at one time, you would have thought it was HR. And I went to HR. It wasn't about anything like really big or anything. But I went to the HR rep to ask a question. Next thing I know, I'm hearing from my manager. Hello, I thought I posted could go to HR for HR things, but the HR person went and told the manager, and then it comes back to me. Well, damn, I can't trust HR.
That is like incredibly fucked up because that's the system that's supposed to work.
That's the system that's supposed to work. And it's like, huh? So, how could it be fixed? Especially if there's organizations that truly realize that they, are underrepresented in their workforce. There's, lack of females, lack of Black, brown, whatever it is, build some sort of, and I won't even call it, maybe a mentorship program, but somehow if, there could be, identified that safe buddy, you know what I mean? A safe buddy program where, and however y'all match to be buddies and all, you figure out the logistics of that, but that's someone that I can go to, have those conversations with, but ultimately too, that person in, the proper channels can then maybe advocate on my behalf. You follow what I'm saying? Because maybe that safe buddy person, is at a higher level. I don't know, they're part of DNI. I don't know, however that structure is, but maybe at least I can go to somebody who can, be that person that can start to open the conversations up for me in a way and do things for me. And it's sad that you have to do that. You think, well, you're supposed to go to your manager. But I feel like things can get just hitting at those levels. You follow what I'm getting at?
I do.
Things get really hidden at that level, and there's no real accountability towards them. You follow what I'm getting at? So
because your manager is ultimately out for their own survival. And if they're being accused of being a participant in something that you're describing, which is a structural problem, they can't solve that.
Right.
So they're like now compromised in thinking like, great, I can't solve this. I need to like hide it for my own survival. Mm-hmm. And that's what I'm going to do.
At the sacrifice of you, the employee.
Exactly. That's right.
Yep. So, I mean, all of what we just described is what really leading people in these unsafe environments. And it's like, I just gotta hang on here, because at the end of the day, I still need to feed people. You know what I mean? Back to, I'm lucky to be here, Tim. I just got to deal with this. And then you go home and your personal life is to shit.
Yes.
Because this is on your mind all the time. You're not having the mental capacity to be with your loved ones like you want to.
Your capacity is filled with shit that from the outside world looks like, why is Tracy drinking so much?
Yeah, exactly.
Or like whatever that thing is, right?
Yeah.
Like I sobered up X years ago, but like clearly that was a coping mechanism.
It was very coping, yeah.
And that looks different for all of us. That was mine.
Yeah, right? For me, it was weed. I'll never forget the day, March 6th, 2011. It was the last day I flushed my last little sack down the toilet. That was the day I
Yep.
quit. But the thing about it wasn't like my life got better. I had to find another coping mechanism. And for
That's
me,
right.
that's when I discovered working out. And I indulged myself in fitness because it's still these demons I'm fighting and dealing with. I just had to find a different way, to do those, because the ripple effect, the bullshit that you're experiencing, which leads to the alcohol or the drugs or whatever, that then destroys any, like relationships that you may have, significant other, son, daughter, but it's destroying all of that. You know what I mean? And then you're left in this place, this little dark place, you're all by yourself, and it's like you start to just be zombie at that point. And it's
Yes.
like, get up and go to work, do this, and you lose all motivation, ambition to do more. It's crippling, man. It is so crippling, and a lot of people do not realize how they're contributing to someone's mental state like that. And so many times it is the work environment.
That's right. And, you know, to my earlier comment, Tim, I will connect this to one thing, and that is you do something like sober up, you have to find another way, right? But what that means is that usually adds an item to your set aside list. Like if I wasn't busy sobering up, that like 60,000 words in a 2-book set of the sci-fi novels I wanted to write might be done, right? So that's the list of set asides. You're like, no, man, I got to set that aside because this is clearly the next right step for me. And where I think, and this is just my opinion, that leaves a person is however accomplished they may look, that's always a set of like feeling compromised. I'm like, well, what did I compromise to get here? Right. Darrell, I wanted to ask you something that this is a topic for me that's like, I don't know, this is like a thorn in my side or craw in my beak, whatever you want to call it. Like safety in the workplace and employee resource groups, ERGs. I have my own critique of ERGs that I'm going to leave unarticulated until I hear like ERGs, good thing, bad thing, where do they need to change, improve, or are they serving what they're supposed to be serving in the IT industry?
Good, very good thing, and I think there's room for some improvement, and very good in terms of having just that sense of community. Like, if you're one of only, Black in a department of 40, 50, 60, you're around no one else, and just being able to have that community, even when it's, so much of it now virtual, it's insane, but, virtual happy hours and virtual coffees and all of that, and you get to see other people, and then let alone be able to do, those in-person events. Absolutely great thing, really critical for hope. For saying, oh, I ain't the only one that's going, oh, okay. And, hope in terms of you meet someone in that ERG and maybe they're having a better experience. And there's hope to say, you know what? Maybe I can move to another role, or I can do something else because, maybe I'm just in a bad spot. It's, maybe it's not really me,
Maybe my manager really is the asshole I think he is.
Right. So
that's not you, Tim, by the way. You're
not every day.
Yes. So uber critical for that. Love everything about the ERG. I think where, I think there could be some improvements is ensuring that those ERGs truly have the proper seat at the table, when it comes to employee related decisions at the highest of leadership level. And I'm not talking about, we're going to brief the ERG first.
Yes.
So we made some decisions.
We're going to ask, it's like consulted on the giant racy diagram. Yeah. It's like, we're going to inform you of this first or consult you first.
Yes.
This is like at the table helping shape that policy before the policy is executed. Great.
Yes,
Yep.
yes. I mean, ensuring that to the highest degree, like literally, and you know, whether this is happening, I may not know, but I doubt it's happening. But you know, having all those proper ERGP, like you said, at the table when things are shaping. But then I think also too is truly ensuring that you have their ear when they need to now bubble up something back to leadership and say, hey, this is what the community is saying. Here's what we need to do. You know, and it's not happening. I know that's not happening, because if it was happening, then we wouldn't still be talking about these pay gaps, you know, and these and this and all these things that have been happening. And, you know, we wouldn't have had to form all of these brand new D&I committees and jobs and all these things, you know. So, you know, ERGs is really powerful in having, you know, that unified collective voice, but it needs to be more of a, that's just an employee network. They got together. We recognize y'all over there, and actually have them, you know, really at that right seat of the table.
Yeah.
If you, back to what I said, if companies lead with valuing their employees more than anything else.
Yeah.
That's great. Thank you. You hit spot on my critique of ERGs. And I'm like, ERGs is more than a contingent in the Pride Parade. You know this, right? And I said this to somebody very highly placed at my old job, my old corporate job. And I was like, all you're telling me is the role that you're taking on is you're going to focus on dumping people as fast as you can into this context with no consideration for how they're landing. And that ERGs is going to be the vehicle by which you're going to like help support them. And what I'm telling you is like, that's a lovely and pleasant distraction, but all of those people are going to quit within 1 year, and they're going to quit angry.
Yep.
You know,
is that base camp? I mean,
I knew you were going to bring that in somehow.
I mean, it's just like sitting right there.
I did not work for base camp, but you could also say also, is that Uber? Is that any one of these things? Because I knew the gal who was charged with changing Uber, and she quit angry in a year. Because there's the notion that this ERG where you can get together with your own people is good enough. And those other two things that you articulated, Darrell, remain unaddressed. And that should be the role of an ERG.
That should be the role. That hands down should be the role. Like I said, just us getting together, kumbayaing, that is great. But that should be just more of a plus to the ERG. You know, the main thing should be those other two things that we talked about. See at the table at the beginning, and actually being that vehicle that can bubble up concerns. So Well, Tim, you brought up base camp. The one thing I want to talk about is I don't know if this is sad or funny, and I forgot the guy's role or whatever. But who was the one that didn't even want to get on the call? It was and he was, I'm in bed sick. Like, come on now. Like, you have World War III happening at your company, you know what I mean? And what you're showing is that I really don't give two shits about you all, and what your concern is, you know, around this racism or whatever happened. That I don't even have the common decency to show up, you know, on this call. You know what I mean? Like I
didn't even hear about that. Wait,
so not
Jason or David, like one of the top two that was just
it's one of the top two. So I think it's which one's the one that's just been Jason is the one that's been saying everything, just right.
Yeah. Jason wrote it all, and David's like, you know,
David.
Around. Okay, yeah.
David. When I read that, because you know, I don't know if you're saying all, and they was breaking down the different team meetings and basically like transcripts of their all hands calls. And the fact that it was like, hey, David, you know, didn't even come on camera, or he might have came for a second and said, oh yeah, they said he came on camera for a second in bed. You could see he was in bed and was like, I'm sick, so I'm gonna go off camera. and was dead quiet the entire all hands meeting while all the fuckery was happening.
That's one way of dodging a bullet.
Well, I mean, dude, you might as well not even showed up. You might as well. I mean,
not dodge the bullet. Yeah.
I mean, to me, that was more of a slap in the face as to how you thought about your employees and how you valued them. To do that, you would have been better off just not even showing up. Yeah. Then it'd be like I could really care less about you all or what's happening right now.
Yeah, I mean,
that's sad.
Alone, the optics, like at least pretend.
At least pretend, dude. At least pretend. And then, you know, people bring it up on the call and, you know, begging them to at least, you know, denounce racism and them not doing it. And baffling to me sometimes, you know, how people, and maybe it's not baffling. I think a lot of times power starts to cloud people's judgment in terms of those that put you in power or making sure you remain in power are humans. And, you know, they're all types of humans. And back to about your employees, you need to cater to them if you want to remain in this power situation that you want to be in. And that is just lost so many. Oh, the other thing with that. Yes. Hold up. So the whole thing around, we're going to back away from, and I'm just synopsing a little bit. We're going to back away from this kind of D&I committee and go back to putting all of that under one person in human resources or something. Like, where's the logic behind that? So if that is not the epitome of, you know, this mindset of, you know, supremacy and whatever's like, we don't need, you know, to discuss issues and understand where everybody's coming from. We're going to put the power in one person's hand. And that's how it should be.
And if there's a question, then it comes to us and we decide. Okay, so here's what's so sad about that. I like, this hit my staff, and you can imagine, because you've met my staff, you can imagine how it landed, which was not well. So I was like, this must be really inflammatory. So I went and read it, and what scared me a lot is that when I read it, I was like, oh, this totally makes sense. That was my first reaction. I'm just gonna be transparent and say, like, I get it, I understand. And if I had not spent the last 5 years being like wrapping my mind around what, you know, Tracy faces, what Rachel talks about, what Joni and others on my staff have taught me, it would not have connected. I feel like I looked at that and I was like, they have no idea what's coming. Right. They don't know what they just communicated to everybody that decided to work there because they thought it would be different. And then they just got the rug
and connecting it back to Darrell, like, they thought it would be safe.
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. Yep. Right.
Yep. Yeah. So I don't know. I think, you know, a good laugh at base camp might have been a good way to kind of wrap up this chat. It was. And I stopped following the saga after a while, so I don't even know what's the latest with it, but maybe I need to catch up. It was very much a soap opera, you know, very much so.
Well, I mean, one of the meta messages I'm taking out of this conversation that I think, I don't know, I guess what I'm saying is I come from a background where I was at times super fucking humbly schooled and just shut the fuck up. And I think one of the meta messages here is that, you know, the inadequacies of the current framework have been very well articulated. And the truth is that you can't both have an inadequate framework and go to the very people you're bringing into this inadequate framework and say, by the way, can you also solve for this? Right? That is not it. Like, the solution is, great, you brought people, shut the fuck up and listen in some way, shape, or form. And listening is connected to power and privilege and humility that are awful personal and corporate lessons to learn.
Yeah, no. Something you said, and I'll say this real quick. You was kind of like, shut up. And then you said inadequate frameworks, which very much put me in the mindset of, and I don't know exactly where you was going with this, but, for me, a little bit of, okay, do you be quiet and just trust the system? But you can't if the framework is inadequate, like you said. So it forces you to step out because you try. You're like, hey, I'm just gonna wait. Things gonna get better. I'm trusting they got my back here, or they're gonna do this. But when that doesn't happen, that's when people got to stand up. They gotta be vocal, and those that are in power, that's when you need to listen. Stop defending and listen.
That, I think, is the perfect wrap. I don't know. Any unarticulated thoughts, Darrell?
No, I think that was it. That was an awesome conversation. I enjoyed every second of it.
Yeah, thank you.
Darrell and Tracy, can I just thank you again for being authentic? It's so important. It's so important for those of us that are watching and paying attention, and we learn so much, and it comes at such a high cost. Thank you.
Yeah, no, you're quite welcome. And I guess I'll leave with this is, I probably can speak for Tracy is, we're being authentic and hope that, some things could change, and hopefully benefit us. But, maybe being these vessels and change agent, I think what would bring us much joy is at least we're being authentic enough that next person coming up and listening, you know what I mean, can start to see, what, I can be authentic too. You know what I mean? And maybe it's their authenticity and their little crew of authentic people that, gets us all over the hump. We don't know, but we all got to keep showing up in that manner.
Amen and hotep. That's exactly right.
No, this is great. I thank you all so much. Such a pleasure talking to you both, Tracy and Tim. I really appreciate it. I love how we just be really open, curse, you could say all types of things, because these are the honest conversations that need to continue to happen and continue to happen. So thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
I'm Tim Lockey.
I'm Tracy Kronzak, and you've been listening to Why It Matters.
Why It Matters is a thought leadership project of Now It Matters, a strategic services firm offering advising and guiding to nonprofit and social impact organizations.
If you like what you've heard, please subscribe, check out our playlists, and visit us at nowitmatters.com to learn more about us.